girl sat quietly in a clinic, avoiding her father's eyes. But when the doctor performed an ultrasound, what he discovered made him panic and exposed a secret no one was prepared to face. She walked into the clinic with her father, eyes glued to the floor, hoodie pulled tight around her small frame. The staff thought it was just nerves, until the doctor placed the ultrasound probe on her stomach. What appeared on the screen made him freeze in shock. In that moment, he realized this wasn't just a routine checkup. It was the beginning of a horrifying truth, one that would unravel an entire family and leave a community questioning how no one saw it sooner. The girl would not look up. She sat in the corner of the waiting room as if the chair itself might swallow her. Red hoodie, sleeves pulled over her palms, sneaker toes turned inward. Her father sat beside her, knees wide, hand resting on the arm of her chair without actually touching her. When the nurse asked for her name, he answered for her. When the blood pressure cuff tightened around her arm, she stared at the floor tiles and counted the scuffs. When the automatic door side opened and the evening air slipped in, she flinched like it was a voice calling her from somewhere she didn't want to go. It was 6:42 p.m. in Santa Rosa, Sonoma County. Thursdays were always slow until they weren't. Fluorescent lights hummed. The front TV carried a muted nature documentary, seals sliding off gray rocks into colder water. The clinic smelled faintly of citrus disinfectant and printer toner. Dr. Evan Lam had just finished with his last scheduled patient. 52. Sturdy around the middle. Kind eyes. The sort of family physician people recommended in supermarket aisles. He never quite got used to the sound of the ultrasound gel dispenser burping into his gloved palm. It always felt too ordinary for what it revealed. He stepped out to the nurse's station with a pair of forgotten reading glasses in his hand. Rosa, these belong to Mrs. Hernandez. If she calls, I'll set them aside, Rosa said, sliding the case into a drawer. She was in her 40s, hair in a no-nonsense bun, voice like warm tea. She nodded toward the far corner of the waiting room, lowering her voice. We have a walk-in. Well, he says it's urgent. Dad and daughter. Something off. Evan followed her glance. The man he recognized. 3 houses down. Same trash day. Marco Alcone. Thick forearms, a blue polo with a logistics company patch, the perpetual look of someone bracing for an argument. The girl he only knew by sight, late middle school age, maybe 9th grade. Evening, Marco. Evan called as he approached. Easy smile loaded like a peace offering. Marco stood quickly and stuck out his hand. Dr. Lam. Sorry to bother you so late. It's my daughter. She needs to be seen. The girl hunched smaller, as if the motion of his standing pushed her deeper into herself. Evan smiled at her. Hey there. I'm Evan. A pause? Gentle? Patient. What's your name? She's Lucia, Marco said, still pumping Evan's hand. Lucia's gaze didn't rise from the floor. Rosa appeared with a clipboard. Let's get vitals, Mija. She kept her tone light, practiced, the way you talk to skittish animals so they'll keep eating from your palm. You can say your full name for me? Marco started. It's Lucia. Rosa didn't look at him. From you? She said, soft. I need to hear it from you, sweetheart. Lucia licked her lips. Lucia, she whispered. Then, a little louder, Lucia Alcone. Rosa's eyes flicked to Evan. It was the smallest glance, but it said, see? They took the pair back to exam room 2. Paper crackled on the bed. The wall poster of the human digestive system, sun-faded at the edges, tried to look comforting and failed. Marco sat in the guest chair, legs spread, elbows planted on knees. Evan washed his hands, buying a second to study the girl in the wall mirror. Thin. Not the Instagram kind of thin. The kind that drew shadows down the collarbones. The hoodie was oversized but didn't hide the way she held herself, carefully, like each movement had to be negotiated with pain. What brings you in tonight? Evan asked, turning, palms drying on a paper towel. Marco answered, She's pregnant. We found out. She's been sick in the mornings. She needs vitamins. Whatever they take. I just wanted to make sure everything is okay. The words fell in the small room like nails. Evan saw Rose's hand pause with the disinfectant wipe on the counter. He kept his face neutral. Lucia, he said. How long have you been feeling sick? A beat. Lucia's lips moved. No sound. Marco's knee bounced. It's been a while, he said. Weeks. Maybe months. She doesn't keep track. Evan let silence fill the space until it tugged on Lucia like a soft rope. She looked at his chest, not his eyes, and whispered, a long time. Any pain? A small nod. Where? She lifted her hand and pressed, not on the middle, but low and a little to the left. Her fingers trembled. Evan's checklist went automatic, the way checklists do when too much is riding on them. Any bleeding? Dizziness? Has anyone examined you before this? Any prenatal care? Marco exhaled impatiently. No. This is the first. It's a private. We don't want people talking. Evan braced himself against the quiet alarm in his chest. He kept his voice even. Lucia, it's my job to look after you. I'd like to do an ultrasound so we can see how baby is doing and about how far along you are. Is that okay? Lucia nodded without looking up. Rosa began prepping. The machine powered on with a blue blink. The gel bottle warmed in its cradle. Evan said, this might feel cold. Out of habit. Even though the warmer made it merely cool. Lucia flinched anyway. He placed the transducer. Gray storm clouds swam into being on the screen. Evan adjusted depth. Tilted. Froze. Unfroze. The reflexes of 1,000 previous scans guided his hand and his eyes. It took fewer than 10 seconds for adrenaline to start its climb up his spine. Okay? He said in the tone doctors use when they've seen something they need to process without the room hearing their heart rate. There we are. The image steadied. A profile formed, ghost pale face, the roundness that made people point and say there. There she is. Evan measured crown to rump. He checked femur length. He tracked the placenta's arc along the upper wall. Numbers assembled in his head like a string of beads. Rosa, who had worked with him long enough to read the shifts in his shoulders, stepped closer to the screen as if to warm it with her presence. Marco leaned forward so far the chair creaked. That's the baby? He said. A shape turned and stretched on the monitor. It always astonished Evan. The way a human in progress could look both alien and familiar. That's her, Evan said. He took a breath. Lucia, from these measurements, you're quite a bit further along than I would have guessed by looking. I'm seeing about 28 weeks. Marco's head jerked. No, that can't be. That can't be. Lucia's hands tightened on the paper sheet. The sound of it tearing was delicate and brutal. Evan kept going because that's what you do when there isn't time to let the room rearrange itself around feelings. I am also seeing signs that she, your baby, may be smaller than expected for this stage. He pointed gently at the waveform. And this heart rhythm? See the variation? It's irregular. Not catastrophic, but concerning. What does that mean? Rosa asked for the room. Intrauterine growth restriction, Evan said. Could be placental. Could be maternal nutrition. Could be other factors. But she needs closer monitoring than we can provide here. Dopplers to check blood flow. Continuous fetal heart rate surveillance. He looked at Lucia, not at Marco. You need to go to the hospital tonight. Silence. Marco's jaw worked. Hospital? We came here to avoid. He stopped himself. We don't want attention. I understand privacy matters to you, Evan said, and meant it. But our priority is safety. Yours and the baby's. If there's a problem with oxygen or growth, waiting is dangerous. The team there can help. Lucia's eyes slipped toward the screen and then away, as if looking too long might make something permanent. Evan moved the probe again. The baby turned, a drifting astronaut. The heart flickered. Beep, beep, beep. Too uneven. He ended the scan and handed Rosa a print order with more speed than he liked. No drama, he told himself. Information. Steps. Care. I'll write a prescription for prenatal vitamins with iron, he said, writing quickly. Folic acid. Calcium. But those don't replace what the hospital will do. They're just supplemental. Marco stood, chair legs scraping. We'll go, he said too fast. We'll go now. Rosa handed Lucia a tissue for the gel. You're doing great, Mija. Lucia didn't move to wipe her stomach. She stared at the ultrasound picture forming from the printer, gray warming into black. When she finally spoke, her voice was so soft Rosa had to lean in to catch it. She likes voices, Lucia whispered. Rosa paused. Who does? The baby. Lucia's fingers trembled as she took the print. When she hears him, she swallowed. She kicks. Hard. I hate that she likes him. The room narrowed. Evan felt it in his throat first, a phantom squeeze. He made his voice a bridge across a chasm. Here's who, Lucia? The door handle clicked. Marco was back in his seat without having left. He hadn't heard her. Or he had. And that was worse. Evan tucked the question away the way you tuck a shard of glass into a cloth. Rosa will help you clean up. I'll get your paperwork. He stepped out into the hall. The night clinic had its own acoustics. Hollow, after-hours quiet that made every stapler sound like an alarm. Evan leaned on the counter and forced his hand to write clearly on the hospital referral. Fetal growth restriction. Irregular rhythm. 28 weeks. Urgent evaluation. Rosa joined him a minute later, expression schooled, eyes live with signals. You heard her. I heard, Evan said. The referral sheet fluttered in his hand. We don't assume. We document. We send. We keep the kids safe. Rosa nodded, jaw tight. He answered every question for her, she said. Even, does it hurt? Like he could feel it. Evan drew a breath and let the air anchor him to protocol. We get them through the door tonight. The hospital has social workers. Safeguarding protocols. But first, the medical part. Back inside the room, he handed Marco the referral and the prescription. The pharmacy next door is open another 15 minutes. If you head to the hospital after, they'll be ready for you. Do you need directions? Marco took the papers but didn't look at them. We know where it is. Lucia, Evan said, gentler. Do you have any questions for me? Lucia glanced at Marco as if the word question were a door she wasn't allowed to open. No, she said quickly. No. Rosa met Evan's eye. He heard the unspoken arithmetic. A minor, a late presentation, a father who deflects, a comment about the baby reacting to a man's voice. The numbers did not add up to something you ignore. At the front desk, Evan gave the referral to the receptionist to fax and called the hospital charge nurse himself. He used the quiet urgency he'd perfected over years, the tone that moves things without making people defensive. 28 weeks by bedside ultrasound, fundal height lagging, concerning FHR variability. Coming from my clinic with Dad. Please flag social work and pediatrics. Got it, the nurse said. We'll expect them. By the time Evan returned to exam room 2, Lucia had pulled her hoodie back down. She stared at the referral form in her father's hand like it was a map to a country where she would not be allowed to speak. Head straight there, Evan said. Tonight. Marco tucked the papers under his arm. His smile was the wrong temperature. We will. Thank you, doctor. They left. The door hushed shut. The room, suddenly empty, seemed to hold the shape of them a moment longer before it softened. Rosa exhaled. I don't like him. We don't have to like him, Evan said. We just have to make sure she's seen. Do you think they'll go? Evan looked at the door. They should. He cleaned the transducer himself. Slow circles that pretended not to be stalling. Rosa shut down the machine and gathered the printed ultrasounds into a manila envelope, labeling it in her neat block letters. Halcon, Lucia, 28 weeks, EST. She paused, fingers on the edge of the image. You see the cord flow? It looked diminished. I saw. He put the probe back in its cradle. The hospital will confirm with Dopplers. Rosa nodded. I'll call charge in 20 to check they arrived. Do, Evan said. And if they haven't, we figure out next steps. They closed the clinic in the way people do when their hands need tasks to keep their minds from rehearsing worst-case scenarios. Lights clicked off. Drawers slid shut. The printer chose that moment to make its long, grinding reset noise, as if waking up instead of going to sleep. At 7:21 p.m., Evan stepped into the parking lot. The sky was purpling toward night. A cool wind pulled at his coat. He told himself that what happens next is not always within the walls you work in. He told himself he had handed the baton to the right people, that the track on the other side of town was lit and ready. He told himself many things. Inside his car, he sat with his hands on the wheel and did not turn the key. Through his windshield he could see the strip mall pharmacy still bright, a handful of customers drifting through its automatic doors. He imagined Marco at the counter, Lucia beside him, eyes on the laminate floor, a bottle rattling into a bag, a nod toward the door that led to the night and its necessary drive. He turned the key. The engine answered. He pulled out, joined the slow stream of neighborhood cars headed home, and let muscle memory bring him to the street where the trees had been trimmed too aggressively last winter, and the sidewalks still remembered where the roots had been. His house was 3 doors down from the Alcones. Porch light on. A bicycle leaned against his own garage in the impatient way his son left it when visiting from college. He parked. He told himself to go inside, text Rosa in 20 minutes, and stop inventing problems that might never arrive. He looked up. The Alcone driveway was not empty. Their sedan sat there in the bruising light, nose in, silent. The porch light burned. A figure passed behind their front window, a shadow briefly cut by lamplight. Evan's stomach did the slow, hollow drop of an elevator between floors. He could have turned away. He could have gone inside and told himself what doctors tell themselves when the edge between professional and neighbor starts to blur. You did what you were supposed to do. You cannot drive every patient to the ER by hand. Across the street, a dog barked twice, then decided night was not worth arguing with and lay down again. Somewhere a TV laugh track rose and fell. Evan closed his car door softly, as if he were in a museum. He started toward the Alcone house. On the 3rd step of the porch, the door opened. Marco stood there, framed in yellow light. "Doctor," he said, surprise flickering like a moth. "Everything okay?" Evan's mouth said the thing his training would deem appropriate. "I was passing by. Wanted to make sure you had no trouble getting out. The hospital's expecting you." Marco's smile got smaller. Lucia's mother came by. They went ahead. He tapped his watch, as if watches measure truth. "I'll follow after I finish some work." Evan nodded in a way that acknowledged the sentence without adopting it. His heart was beating in a too careful rhythm. "All right. I'll let them know you're on your way." "If you would," Marco said, and the smile stayed where smiles go when they're not supported by faces. "Thanks. Document." The door closed. The porch light hummed. Evan stood another breath on the steps and listened to the house. Houses speak. You can hear them when you want to and when you don't. This one said nothing anyone could go to court with. Back home, he microwaved leftover pasta and didn't taste any of it. He sat at his small desk in the room that pretended not to be a home office. He opened his laptop. He told himself not to look and then looked anyway. He typed a name he already knew how to spell. Marco Alcone. Profiles bloomed. Photos. Friends. The algorithm offered a dozen ways to be nosy wrapped in a dozen illusions of connection. Evan scrolled, jaw tight, hating himself a little and doing it anyway because sometimes care looks like trespass when the alternative is negligence. Halfway down a list of friends, a name made something in his memory ring. Daniela Rivera. He clicked. A profile opened. A woman in a work polo at a team picnic, hair blown across her cheek. Eyes tired like people who have learned to budget every kind of energy. He stared at the timeline. Years thinned out. Photos grew sparse. He hovered over the message button. Professional boundaries are a fence, he told himself. And then he stepped through a board where the wood had already rotted. "Hi, Ms. Rivera. I'm Dr. Evan Lam. I saw your daughter Lucia at my clinic this evening. I'm writing because I'm concerned and want to make sure she's safe and receiving care. If you're with her at the hospital, please let me know which unit so I can call ahead." He pressed send, then sat back, the way people sit back from cliffs to give physics a chance to change its mind. His phone face down on the desk buzzed. He flipped it over as if it might burn him. "What hospital visit?" The message read. "Is Lucia okay? I'm not with her. I haven't seen her in years." Evan's throat went dry. He turned, slowly, to the window. Across the dark street, the Alcone porch light still burned like a patient, unblinking eye. He didn't know it yet, but the simple act of turning on his laptop had nudged the night into a different shape. The story had started hours ago in a quiet clinic with gel that wasn't as cold as it felt. It would not end where routine said it should. Outside, a late bus hissed by, bleeding sound. Evan stood up. The room felt too small for the weight of the message on his screen. Rosa's name glowed on his phone. They haven't arrived at the hospital. Her text read. Charge says no sign of them yet. He typed back with fingers that wanted to hurry and couldn't. I'm going to call. He dialed the hospital. Voices moved. Lines clicked. He repeated her name. He repeated the numbers. He apologized to no one. When he hung up, the house felt like a borrowed coat, still warm from someone else. He looked out again at the Alcone driveway, at the car that hadn't moved, at the door that had closed with a friendly lie. In the seconds before he picked up his keys again, before his feet found the street, before a dozen choices shivered like strings on a guitar, Evan heard his own heartbeat, irregular from nothing but fear. On the desk, the ultrasound print lay where Rosa had tucked an extra copy into the envelope, maybe on purpose. In the grainy still image, the baby's hand floated near her mouth. She looked, impossibly, like she was about to speak. The night clinic always felt different once the last patient left. The building seemed to sigh, relieved of its daily burden, while the fluorescent lights hummed above empty chairs. But tonight, that sigh never came. Rosa locked the medication cabinet and glanced at the ultrasound machine one more time. She wasn't a superstitious woman, but she swore the dark screen still held echoes of the ghostly figure they'd seen. You're thinking the same thing I am, she said quietly. Dr. Evan Lom, still at his desk, looked up. His stethoscope lay on a chart he hadn't finished. That it doesn't add up? That girl? Rosa pressed. She wasn't just shy. That was fear. She couldn't even look at you. Couldn't even say her name until I insisted. Evan rubbed his temple. He knew better than to let speculation run wild, but Rosa wasn't wrong. I know Marco. We're neighbors. He's strict, maybe, but I've never seen him violent. Strict doesn't make a child whisper. I hate that she likes him. The words hung in the air like a needle poised above skin. Neither of them had to repeat what Lucia meant. The implication was enough to chill the room. Later, when Evan finally left, he couldn't shake the images from his mind. He drove slowly down the familiar street, headlights brushing across tidy lawns and parked cars. And there it was, Marco's sedan, still in the Alcone driveway. He slowed. His own porch light blinked on automatically, but he kept driving, circling the block once, twice, as though repetition might produce a different truth. They had not gone to the hospital. At home, he microwaved leftovers, fork in hand but appetite gone. His laptop glowed with Marco's Facebook page. The friend list was too open, too telling. He had no business looking, but he couldn't stop. When Daniela Rivera's profile appeared, the resemblance between her and Lucia punched him in the chest. But what unsettled him more was her message back. What hospital visit? I haven't seen my daughter in years. Evan sat back, the fork clattering onto his plate. He replayed Marco's words at the door. Lucia's mother came by. They went ahead. A lie. Clean. Quick. Practiced. His phone buzzed again. Rosa's name. They never checked in at the hospital, she said without greeting. Her voice was sharp with suppressed fear. I called the charge nurse. No one by that name. No intake that matches her description. I know, Evan admitted. Her mother just told me she hasn't seen her in 3 years. Silence on the line. Then Rosa, 3 years? But he said. I know what he said. Doctor. Rosa whispered. Something's wrong. Evan arrived at the clinic earlier than usual, coffee half drunk, heart still thudding from restless dreams. Rosa was already there, arms crossed, face pale. Couldn't sleep, she muttered. Kept seeing her eyes. Me too. Rosa hesitated, then asked the question neither wanted to. Do you think? She lowered her voice. Do you think the father is the... Stop. Evan cut her off, sharper than intended. We don't jump to that. We can't. But even as he said it, the words rang hollow. By late afternoon, Evan was sure they wouldn't come back. Then, just before closing, The front door opened. Marco strode in first, shoulders squared. Behind him, Lucia followed like a shadow. Her hoodie zipped up though the air outside was warm. Evan's pulse spiked. He forced a smile. Evening. Did you make it to the hospital? Marco shook his head briskly. The wait was ridiculous. Hours just to be seen. We came back to you instead. You know what you're doing. Document. You can handle it. Evan's mouth went dry. Marco, I told you, Lucia needs specialized monitoring. I can't replace that. We'll manage here, Marco insisted. He placed a firm hand on his daughter's shoulder. Isn't that right, Lucia? Lucia gave the faintest nod, eyes down. Rosa's jaw tightened. She stepped forward. Lucia, honey, can you tell me? Did you feel the baby move today? Marco answered before the girl could open her mouth. Yes, plenty of kicks. Strong baby. Evan caught Rosa's eye. The silent exchange said everything. He won't let her speak. She isn't safe. Evan tried again, carefully. Lucia, I want to hear from you. Just you. Has the baby moved? Lucia hesitated. Marco's grip tightened. Then, in the barest whisper, she said, she only moves when he talks. Evan froze. Rosa's hand stilled on her clipboard. Marco laughed, oblivious, or pretending. See? She knows her father's voice. But Evan felt the hair rise on the back of his neck. He had heard enough confessions in coded words, in whispered fragments, to know when a truth was hiding in plain sight. When they left, prescription in hand, Rosa turned to Evan, her voice trembling. You heard her. You heard her. Evan sat heavily at his desk. His medical notes blurred on the screen. If I report based only on that, and I'm wrong, I could destroy a family. If I don't, and I'm right. Rosa slammed the folder shut. And if you wait, that girl might not survive. Neither might the baby. Evan leaned back, the weight of decision pressing down. He stared at the ultrasound print still pinned to the board, grainy, gray, frozen. The tiny hand pressed close to the mouth, as though already begging for silence. The truth was simple and unbearable. Every minute that passed without action, the danger grew. But how do you fight a secret wrapped inside a family, 3 houses down from your own? That night, Evan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the rhythmic tick of the wall clock cutting through the silence. His house was quiet, too quiet. 3 doors down, Marco's porch light was still on, burning past midnight like a signal no one wanted to read. Lucia's whisper replayed in his head. She only moves when he talks. I hate that she likes him. He turned on his side, tried to will his brain into silence, but the images from the ultrasound flickered against the dark. The irregular heartbeat, the slowed growth, a baby struggling to exist inside a silence that no one dared break. By 2 a.m., he gave up. He padded into his small home office, turned on his laptop, and opened the message thread with Daniela Rivera. Her last words glared back at him. I haven't seen my daughter in 3 years. Evan typed slowly, fingers hesitant. Daniela, I know it's late. I need to be clear. Lucia is pregnant, about 7 months along. She came in with Marco. He told me she was with you at the hospital, but you've said you haven't seen her. I'm worried something is very wrong. The reply came quickly, like she hadn't been sleeping either. Please call me. Now. Evan hesitated. Messaging was already a boundary crossed. But his gut twisted. He pressed call. The ring barely lasted 1 cycle before Daniela's voice, tense and raw, filled his ear. Doctor, tell me everything. Her tone wasn't the shocked disbelief of a mother blindsided. It was the brittle edge of someone who had always feared a call like this would come. Evan swallowed. Lucia is pregnant. 28 weeks. There are complications. She needs hospital care. A long silence. Then Daniela whispered. He told the court I was unstable. He won custody. I tried for years to fight, but he shut me out completely. I haven't been allowed near her since. Her voice cracked. And now she's pregnant? Yes. Evan's voice was careful, steady. And the father refuses to take her to the hospital. He insists on keeping it private. Daniela, why would he lie about you? Because, Daniela said slowly, He doesn't want anyone asking who the father of that baby really is. The line went quiet. The words landed like stones dropped into water, spreading ripples through everything Evan thought he knew. By morning, Rosa noticed the shadows under Evan's eyes. "You didn't sleep," she said flatly. "I spoke with her mother," he admitted. Rosa's eyebrows shot up. "You did what?" "She hasn't seen her daughter in 3 years. Custody fight. Restraining orders. It's messy." Rosa's face hardened. "And now a 14-year-old is 7 months pregnant. Tell me you see where this is going." Evan did. He didn't want to put it into words, because words made it real. Late that afternoon, Marco returned. He came alone this time. His presence filled the waiting room, his smile tight, his posture controlled. "Doctor," he greeted. "Just wanted to check in. No need to bother Lucia today. She's resting." Evan forced professionalism into his tone. "She needs more than rest. She needs hospital monitoring." Marco waved the concern away. "Hospitals overreact. I know my daughter. She's fine. You've given us the vitamins. She'll manage." Rosa crossed her arms from behind the desk. "Those vitamins don't fix a restricted growth pattern or an irregular heartbeat." Marco's gaze snapped to her, his smile thinning. "We'll handle it privately." Evan studied him. There was a calmness in Marco's voice, but it wasn't peace. It was control. Absolute, suffocating control. That evening, after Marco left, Rosa muttered, "He's keeping her locked up." Evan pinched the bridge of his nose. "We can't assume." "Stop," Rosa snapped. "You heard her. She only moves when he talks. You know what that means." "I know what that means. If you wait for certainty, you'll be waiting at her funeral." The words stung, but they were true. Evan leaned against the counter, exhausted. "If I call Child Protective Services and I'm wrong, I destroy lives. If I don't call and I'm right," he trailed off. Rosa stared at him, eyes blazing. "Which mistake can you live with?" That night, Evan sat in his office again, staring at the ultrasound print pinned to his corkboard. The baby's hand near her mouth, frozen mid-motion, like she wanted to speak but couldn't. He opened his laptop. He searched the county database. Marco Alcone, court records. The screen filled with filings, custody hearings, petitions, protective orders. The more he scrolled, the deeper the pit in his stomach grew. Daniela hadn't lied. She had fought. She had lost. And Marco had kept Lucia completely to himself ever since. Evan closed his eyes. His finger hovered over the phone. It was time. He dialed a number he hadn't used in years. The on-call line for Child Protective Services. His voice shook, but he forced it steady. "This is Dr. Evan Lam, Santa Rosa Family Clinic. I need to report a case." He stared at the ultrasound as he spoke, the black and white blur of a child not yet born. "It's urgent," he said softly, "and it can't wait." The morning after his call to Child Protective Services, Evan sat in his office with a knot in his stomach. The CPS intake worker had listened carefully, taken down details, and promised to open a file. The phrase sounded clinical, almost casual, like a drawer sliding shut. But to Evan, it meant something terrifyingly real. The Alcone family was now on record. Rosa came in early, her face already tense. She set her bag down with a thud. "Well, I called," Evan admitted. "They'll look into it." "Look into it," she echoed bitterly. Meanwhile, the girl's still in his house, 7 months pregnant with a baby that's not thriving. Waiting might kill her. Evan rubbed his eyes. "We can't force their hand. CPS needs evidence, not suspicions." Rosa leaned across the counter, voice dropping to a whisper. "What about her mother?" "You said," she replied. "She hasn't seen Lucia in years. Marco won custody. There's a history of restraining orders. He painted her as unstable." Rosa snorted. "Classic. Discredit the mother, keep the child. And now look where we are." That evening, Evan's phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. He answered, and Daniela Rivera's voice spilled through, sharp, breathless. "I'm here," she said. "I drove all night. I want to see my daughter." Evan's chest tightened. "Daniela, if you show up at his house, You'll give him leverage to call the police. He'll spin it as harassment. I don't care, she said fiercely. She's my child. If she's pregnant and he's hiding it, if what you're implying is true, then I can't just sit back and let her die there. Her desperation shook him. She was a mother clawing at the only door left open, but he knew the law was not on her side. Meet me tomorrow, Evan said. At the clinic. Quietly. If CPS calls, I need your statement. The next day, Marco arrived with Lucia again. He was calmer this time, almost smug, as if daring Evan to challenge him. She's doing fine, Marco said, patting the girl's shoulder. Ate breakfast. No pain today. Lucia didn't speak. Her eyes flicked up once, just once, meeting Evan's. In that glance, he saw exhaustion, fear, and something else. A plea she couldn't voice. Evan kept his tone neutral. Lucia, would you mind stepping on the scale for me? She hesitated. Marco nodded sharply. She obeyed. The numbers confirmed his fear. She had gained almost nothing since the last visit. For 28 weeks, she should have been showing steady growth. Instead, her weight barely inched upward. This isn't sustainable, Evan said. The baby's at risk. Marco's jaw tightened. We're not running to the hospital every time you want to scare us. She's my daughter. I'll decide what's best. Behind him, Rosa muttered, that's the problem. That evening, long after Marco left, Daniela came to the clinic through the back door. She looked older than her profile picture, eyes rimmed red from driving and crying. She was 14 when I last held her, she whispered. She should be in high school. Not. She broke off, clutching her arms. Evan explained carefully what he'd seen. The advanced pregnancy, the irregular heartbeat, the whispered comment about the baby reacting to Marco's voice. Daniela pressed her hand to her mouth, tears spilling. I knew, she choked. I knew he would do something like this. He was too possessive even when we were married. Always watching, always controlling. When I left, I told the court he wasn't safe. They didn't believe me. Her voice cracked. Now my daughter is paying the price. Rosa listened in silence, then finally said what they were all thinking. If Marco is the father, if that's why he's hiding her, then this isn't just abuse. It's a crime. Evan's stomach turned. He had suspected, yes, but hearing it said aloud solidified it into something unbearable. Daniela's hands trembled. Please, she begged. Help me get her out. Evan knew they were walking a razor's edge. If Marco suspected they were conspiring, he could vanish with the girl. The law would be slow, sluggish, wrapped in bureaucracy. But the baby's heartbeat was irregular. Time was running out. That night, Evan wrote his notes with clinical precision, each word chosen like a weapon. Minor, 14 years old, approximately 28 weeks pregnant. Fetal growth restriction. Father controls all communication. Minor demonstrates fear, avoids eye contact. States, baby only moves when he talks. Recommendation. Immediate hospital admission and child welfare intervention. He knew these notes could later serve as evidence. He also knew that until the right authority acted, they were only words on a screen. Rosa closed the clinic with unusual force that night, slamming drawers harder than needed. Doctor, she said firmly, if we wait for the system, that girl will die in that house. We need to do more. Evan didn't reply. He stared at the empty hallway, haunted by the image of Lucia's downcast eyes and the faint, desperate flutter of a baby struggling inside her. The secrets were stacking higher, but walls built from secrets eventually collapse. And when they did, someone would be crushed beneath them. The next 2 days blurred together. The clinic bustled with flu cases, sprained ankles, and routine checkups. But for Evan, every chart he signed was just ink and habit. His mind lived 3 houses down, in the Alcone home where Lucia remained unseen. Every time the phone rang, he half expected it to be the hospital saying she'd been admitted. Every time Rosa walked in with another file, he searched her face for news. Nothing came. By the 3rd evening, Rosa slammed her pen down mid-shift. This is madness. We sit here like everything is normal, while that girl's heartbeat could be slowing as we speak. Evan didn't argue. He couldn't. Daniela showed up again, this time in daylight. She waited in the staff parking lot, her hair pulled back, eyes red but fierce. "I've been parked outside his house," she admitted. "I saw her once through the curtain. Just a flicker. She looked so small, so tired." Her hands clenched into fists. "If the system won't act, I will. I'll break the door down myself if I have to." "Daniela, listen to me," Evans said firmly. "If you storm in, you'll be arrested. He'll use it against you, and you'll lose whatever chance you have of getting her back legally." She glared. "Then what's your plan, doctor?" "Wait until she collapses on his kitchen floor." Her words cut deep because they echoed his own fear. On Friday evening, Marco brought Lucia back to the clinic. This time, the girl looked paler, her hoodie hanging looser, her steps slower. "She hasn't been eating much," Marco explained casually, as if discussing a picky toddler. "Teenagers, right? Stubborn." Rosa's lips thinned. "She's not stubborn. She's starving." Evan guided Lucia gently to the exam table. Her hands shook as she climbed up. He measured her abdomen again. The numbers didn't lie, growth still lagging. Worse, when he placed the Doppler probe to check the heartbeat, it faltered, skipping like a broken metronome. He froze, keeping his face neutral so Marco wouldn't see panic. "Still okay?" Marco asked, eyes narrowing. Evan forced calm. "The rhythm is irregular. This confirms what I said before. She needs immediate hospital admission." Marco's jaw tightened. "Hospitals exaggerate. You doctors see a blip and call it a crisis. I won't let strangers poke around in her life. We'll handle it privately." Lucia flinched at his words. Her eyes darted to Evan, and for the briefest second, he saw it again. That plea, silent but desperate. When Rosa led Lucia to clean up in the adjoining washroom, Marco stepped out to answer his buzzing phone. The moment the door clicked shut, Rosa crouched beside the girl. "You're safe for a moment," she whispered. "If there's something you want to say, this is the time." Lucia's lips trembled. Tears welled. And then, in the faintest voice, she said, "He told me not to tell. But he's the only man I ever see." Rosa's breath caught. She squeezed the girl's hand. "Sweetheart, that's enough. You've told me what we need to know." Before she could say more, Marco's footsteps returned. Rosa straightened quickly, masking her face with practiced calm. Later that night, after they'd gone, Rosa cornered Evan in his office. Her voice shook with fury. She said it. "She as good as told me he's the father. And you want to keep writing notes while she wastes away in that house." Evan's hands clenched. "Rosa, if we confront him directly, he'll vanish with her. You know men like him. Control is their religion. If he suspects we're interfering, he'll cut us out completely." "Then what?" Rosa demanded. "Wait for him to kill her and call it fate?" Evan leaned back, exhausted, tormented. "I filed my report with CPS. If they move fast." "They won't," Rosa snapped. "Not fast enough." That night, Evan couldn't resist. He drove past Marco's house slowly, headlights dimmed. The curtains were drawn, but the porch light blazed like always. Through the faint gap in the blinds, he thought he saw a figure. A girl's silhouette, standing still, as though waiting for rescue that wouldn't come. His hands tightened on the wheel until his knuckles ached. He wanted to pull over, knock on the door, drag her out. But fear held him back. The fear of making it worse, of giving Marco the excuse to lock her tighter inside. Truth and fear warred inside him, equal in weight. And in that war, every minute mattered. The following Monday, the phone rang just as the clinic was winding down. Rosa answered, her tone brisk as always, but within seconds her face drained of color. She cupped the receiver and mouthed to Evan, "It's them." Evan crossed the room in 2 strides, taking the phone. "This is Dr. Lam." Lucia's voice trembled on the other end, barely audible. "Doctor, it hurts." His throat tightened. "Lucia? Where are you right now?" A muffled shuffle. Then Marco's voice replaced hers, smooth and defensive. "She's fine, doctor. Just a little cramp. Teenagers exaggerate everything." Evan's jaw clenched. "She needs immediate evaluation. If she's in pain at this stage, it could mean preterm labor or fetal distress." Bring her in now. Marco chuckled, a sound that didn't belong in the moment. You doctors always think you know better. She'll be fine. I've got it handled. The line went dead. Rosa's face was pale. He cut you off. Yes. Evan's voice was low, cold. And now she's in real danger. By the next morning, the waiting room door banged open. Marco entered, half dragging, half guiding Lucia by the arm. She was doubled over, her hoodie damp with sweat, face ashen. She started bleeding, Marco muttered, eyes darting. We didn't know what else to do. Rosa rushed forward, helping the girl onto a gurney. Evan's hands moved on autopilot, checking vitals, stabilizing her trembling body. Her pulse was rapid, blood pressure low. Too low. He met Rosa's eyes. This is it. Marco, she needs to be transferred immediately. Evan said, voice firm, stripped of compromise. This is an emergency. But Marco stood rooted, jaw tight, fear and defiance wrestling on his face. No hospitals. No police. You hear me? No one outside this room. Lucia whimpered, clutching her abdomen. A faint, irregular thud came through the Doppler. Slowing, faltering. Mr. Alcone, Evan said slowly, if you stop me from sending her, you will watch your daughter and grandchild die here. Right now. Do you understand? The words cracked the air like glass shattering. For the first time, Marco faltered. While Marco stood frozen, Rosa acted. She slipped out the side door, phone in hand. Her voice shook but remained steady enough as she called emergency services. This is Santa Rosa Family Clinic, she said. 14-year-old, third trimester pregnancy, active bleeding, fetal distress, possible abuse situation. We need EMS and law enforcement immediately. She hung up and hurried back, chest heaving. Evan was still bent over Lucia, steadying her breathing, murmuring reassurance. Marco's eyes flicked to Rosa, suspicion dawning. Who were you calling? Sterile supplies. She lied smoothly. We're running out. She needs all the help she can get. But the sirens began wailing in the distance, faint but growing. Marco's face twisted, fury flooding in. You called them? He snarled, stepping toward Rosa. Evan rose to his full height, planting himself between Marco and the gurney. You will not touch her. Not anymore. The sound of sirens grew louder. Tires screeched outside. Marco's fists clenched. For a terrifying second, Evan thought he would lunge. But the door burst open, paramedics flooding in, followed by 2 police officers. The room erupted in controlled chaos. 4 lines starting, monitors attaching, firm voices calling out vitals. Lucia reached for Rosa's hand, whispering through tears, "Don't let him near me." Rosa squeezed back, tears burning her eyes. He won't. Not ever again. As officers pulled Marco back, cuffing his wrists despite his furious protests, Evan finally let himself exhale. His hands trembled, but he steadied them against the gurney. Stay with me, Lucia, he whispered, his voice low but urgent. We're not letting you go. Not now. Lucia's eyes fluttered open. For the first time, she looked at him directly. No downcast stare. No avoidance. Just raw, unfiltered trust. And then the paramedics wheeled her out. Monitors beeping, sirens waiting to carry her into the night. The clinic was suddenly still, emptied of its storm. Only the faint echo of the sirens remained, trailing off into the distance. Evan leaned against the counter, breath ragged. Rosa wiped at her face, tears finally falling unchecked. We did it, she whispered, almost to herself. We broke it. But Evan's gaze stayed fixed on the door, because breaking a chain didn't mean healing the wounds it had left behind. And for Lucia, the hardest part was still to come. The fluorescent lights of Santa Rosa Memorial's emergency ward burned white and cold, reflecting off polished linoleum floors. The gurney carrying Lucia rattled through the hallway as paramedics called out vitals. 14-year-old female, 28 weeks, active bleeding, fetal heart rate irregular, possible intrauterine growth restriction, suspected abuse situation. Doctors and nurses fell into motion. Monitors beeped, gloves snapped, voices overlapped. Rosa stayed at the girl's side until a nurse firmly guided her back. "We'll take it from here." Lucia's hand slipped from hers, pale fingers trembling. For the first time since she entered the clinic, she looked relieved, even in her pain. In the waiting area, Evan watched as officers escorted Marco in, cuffed and furious. His voice carried down the hall, loud enough for everyone to hear. "They're lying. My daughter needs me. She wants me there." A police sergeant stopped him short. "She asked us to keep you away, sir. You're not going anywhere near her." The words seemed to stun him more than the cuffs. He sagged for a fraction of a second, mask cracking. Then his rage returned. "She's confused. She doesn't know what she wants." But no one listened. The door closed between him and the ward. For the first time in years, the barrier wasn't just psychological. It was real. An hour later, Daniela arrived, breathless, her clothes wrinkled from the long drive, her eyes rimmed red from tears. When she saw Evan, she nearly collapsed with relief. "Where is she?" Evan guided her to a seat, speaking gently. "She's stable for now. They're working to stop the bleeding. The baby's heart rate is still irregular, but she's in the best hands here." Daniela pressed her palms to her face, shoulders shaking. "I thought I lost her forever. And now," she swallowed hard. "Doctor, tell me the truth. Is she going to make it?" Evan hesitated. He'd learned long ago that promises in medicine were dangerous. "She has a chance," he said carefully, "but it won't be easy." Hours later, as the chaos settled into the steady rhythm of hospital procedure, a social worker approached Evan. Her expression was grim. "We've spoken with Lucia," she said quietly. "She confirmed what you suspected. The father, Marco, he's the one. The pregnancy is his doing." Evan closed his eyes. The words were confirmation, but they landed with the weight of stone. "He'll be facing charges," the social worker continued. "Multiple. But right now, our priority is protecting her and the baby." When Evan opened his eyes, Rosa was watching from across the hall. She didn't need words. She already knew. Later that night, Evan was allowed to step briefly into the recovery room. Lucia lay pale against the sheets, and 4 in her arm, monitors softly beeping. Daniela sat at her side, holding her hand, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Lucia's eyes opened, heavy with exhaustion. She looked at her mother for a long time before whispering, "You came back." Daniela broke into sobs. "I never left you, Mija. He kept me away. But I never stopped trying." Lucia's fingers tightened weakly around hers. For the first time, she didn't look afraid. Evan stood at the foot of the bed, silent witness. It wasn't victory. It wasn't healing. But it was a beginning. Back in the parking lot, dawn breaking faintly on the horizon, Evan leaned against his car. He should have felt relief. Instead, he felt hollow. He thought of the hundreds of patients he'd treated, the countless times he'd written prescriptions, the nights he'd gone home believing he'd done enough. But this time, enough had nearly not been enough. Rosa joined him, sipping a bitter coffee. "She's safe. That's what matters." He nodded slowly. "Safe for now. But trauma doesn't end when the door closes on it." They stood in silence, the morning air cool and damp. Later, at home, Evan pinned the final ultrasound print to his corkboard. The grainy image of the baby's tiny hand hovered near her mouth, frozen mid-gesture. He stared at it for a long time, the echoes of Lucia's whisper filling the room. "She only moves when he talks. I hate that she likes him." The words would never leave him. Even with Marco behind bars, with Lucia in her mother's arms, the truth had left a scar too deep for justice to erase. Because some echoes, once heard, never stop. Lucia's story reminds us that danger often hides in plain sight, and that sometimes the quietest cries for help are the hardest to hear. If you believe stories like this need to be told, and you want to uncover more mysteries and hidden truths with us, make sure to subscribe. Your support helps us bring these powerful stories to light and ensures they're never forgotten.